In this lesson, we're going to compare and contrast control by the nervous and endocrine or hormone systems. Both the nervous and endocrine systems are involved in control and coordination of bodily responses to stimuli. A stimulus is just something that provokes a response, and a stimulus can be either external, something like the appearance of a predator or a change in the temperature of the environment, or it could also be internal, something like a change in blood pressure or a change in osmolarity of the fluids in the body. In both cases, the stimulus is going to provoke a response. Now, the nervous system is set up as a connection of one neuron to the next. This is a simplification indicating a neuron, and we see here it synapsing onto another neuron and with the release of neurotransmitter in between them. Of course, this is an oversimplification. There are many, many neurons that are synapsing on each of these, but that's just to illustrate the idea. In contrast, the endocrine system is set up differently. There are specialized structures called glands that produce and release hormones into the bloodstream. If this is a blood vessel, a gland is going to release hormones into the bloodstream, and they will be carried by the blood to other parts of the body where the hormones will bind with receptors and have an effect. In the case of the nervous system, the receptors are here on the dendrites of the following neuron. In the case of the endocrine system, the receptors are on target organs that might be quite far away in the body. Let's compare and contrast these two systems. In the nervous system, the signaling within the neuron itself, here in the axon and in the cell body, is electrical in the form of graded and action potentials. But here at the synapse, we have the release of neurotransmitters and we have chemical signaling there. So in the nervous system, signaling is both electrical within the neuron and chemical in the synapse. In contrast, the endocrine system is chemical signaling. Gland cells are releasing hormones that are traveling in the bloodstream to other parts of the body where they're having their effect. In the case of the nervous system, the signal and the effect is typically fast in onset, but relatively brief in duration. Again, think of it being primarily an electrical signal, and think about how quickly electrical signals travel. Also consider the fact that we have a direct connection here, effectively, between one neuron and the next. In contrast, in the endocrine system, hormones are released into the blood. They need to be circulated in the blood to other parts of the body where they bind to receptors and have their effects. And so the onset is slower. And depending on the hormone, the duration can be variable, but typically the effects of signaling in the endocrine system are longer in duration than that in the nervous system. Again, this can differ for different hormones depending on their half-life, how quickly they're broken down in the body, etc. Now let's look at the target cells for each of these systems signaling. In the nervous system, you can see that, of course, a neuron can synapse onto another neuron. So the first kind of target cell in the nervous system could be another neuron. But we can also have a muscle cell here at the end of the pathway. And muscles are stimulated to contract by the release of neurotransmitter from this last neuron. This last neuron would be called a motor neuron. So one of the target cells of nervous system signaling can be another neuron, and one can be muscle. And then interestingly, the nervous system can also stimulate glands. Glands, of course, being, as we said, the organs that release hormones. So there is a real connection between the nervous system and the endocrine system. We often think of them as separate, but they are closely intertwined. So the nervous system target cells can be another neuron, can be muscles, can be glands. In the endocrine system case, however, there can be many, many different kinds of target organs. Those hormones are floating in the bloodstream, and you can think of that as broadcasting a signal all over the body. Whereas in the nervous system, the signal is targeted right to where it is synapsing, where the last neuron is synapsing. In the case of the endocrine system, the hormone is being sent all around the body like a broadcast signal, and it's being picked up by only those cells that have the right receptors. So the way that the targeting happens is whether or not cells have the appropriate receptors. So those cells with the appropriate receptors to pick up that hormone can be in lots of different places of the body. That means that the hormone or endocrine system can simultaneously trigger cells, target cells in many different parts of the body all at once. The types of responses are different as well. So those follow from the kinds of target cells. In the case of the nervous system, another neuron might be triggered to signal. Muscles can be triggered to contract. And glands, being part of the endocrine system, can be triggered to secrete hormones. Again, in the case of the endocrine system, there can be many different target cells, and so the effects can be very varied as well. Things like growth are coordinated by hormones, metabolism, meaning energy and nutrient or matter management, water and ion balances, reproduction, etc. There are lots of different responses that can be coordinated by the endocrine system. So that is a look at the nervous and endocrine systems and their means of coordination and control and how they are different.